If you've ever thought about why ad agencies or clients do not pick you for a job, or why they don't respond after you've submitted an audition, and you're wondering, what did you do wrong? Well, this episode is for you because I'll be speaking, or I spoke to someone who really plays an active role in this space. I'm talking about the ad agency space and creative directing space in order to bring ads to life using voice actors and connecting with clients. I think I should properly start with saying happy New Year and welcome to 2025. It's a pleasure to see the new year with you and be able to serve you again in the voiceover space via this podcast, the Everything Voiceovers podcast, The African Perspective. I am Tcode as usual, your host, and every week we get to talk about voiceover related topic. Now, I should also apologize that for the past 2-3 weeks now, no episode was released. Well, it was, the festive period. We had a lot on our hands, so we just had to take a break, even though we promised we're going to drop episodes. However, we're back, and we're back with the bonus episodes that we've been, giving to you guys since December till now, January 2025. And continuing the bonus episodes is this episode that has a lot to do with the interaction between ad agencies and the talents and the clients. So Ayo Moore, who is my guest, gave us more insights about how he has been able to, manage that relationship, help talent understand better the brief. Yeah, we really spoke about the brief and also better express what they want to the ad agencies and also to the talent. So I implore you to enjoy this episode, and I'll be right back to tell you what I learned. And yep, thank you so much. Enjoy.
Sometimes it's just about knowing that simplicity works, really. So for me, I saw a lot of those. I was exposed to a lot of those, and it kind of like shaped a lot of my thinking, when writing radio commercials. I started doing radio commercials without music. When I saw that, you don't necessarily need music. So let the narrator breathe. Let us hear what they're trying to say. And at the end, when you're tying in the name of the brand and whatnot, you can just cue in with maybe a tiny 5-second, music and whatnot. For me, the story is always important. Storytelling is always really important.
Listening to this is just like listening to a powerful story, actually. And I enjoyed how you took us through the mind and how advertising really works. Because I think many voiceover artists, some of us aren't that invested in advertising. We don't know the gravity of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
And again, it's also because I feel like we're always like I don't want to say maybe the last person to be brought into the team, but we are more of the external folk that is expected to just join the team and understand everything the team has been putting together for a while. And I feel like that brings a lot of it takes someone who is very observant and able to learn what the atmosphere is like for the advertising brief to know what exactly he's supposed to do. And that also makes me sort of like find some imbalance in the casting process. Now, what I'm saying is like I'm thinking really, really big right now, because when you're casting, you put a script, you put a brief out there, and you just expect voiceover artists to be able to key into it. You may have a voiceover artist who is talented enough to interpret or to just play the right part in that script. But because the person is void of the exact idea that birthed the script, the brief from the first beginning, and he's not immersed enough into your world, the person merely just guesses what interpretation to use. And I'd like you to speak to this also from an angle of an ad person, seeing how voiceover artists are just auditioning. What's the best approach that we need to take? I've heard it a lot of times. Some people would say follow your guts, just do something bold and don't just take it for what it is. Some people will say do a research about the brand, different kind of stuff. But what do you think is the best approach for we voice actors to be key into the messaging of the ad from the creators?
You're very correct. There's sort of like an imbalance there. So which is why I part of my work is to bridge that gap, between the story or the brief or the script and what is eventually delivered. Yeah, to be honest, and to be fair, yeah, the voice talent is usually the last person in the equation. Like, it's unfortunate. I'm not quite sure anything much can be done about that. But what I try to do when I have productions is, number one, I always try to give the voice talent at least 24 to 48 hours time to sort of like soak themselves into the story or into the brief. So when I get a brief, I try, I mean, we live in like this fast, I want it like yesterday, client doesn't approve anything, but they approve, and it's literally like 12 hours to, I want it like yesterday, basically. But times where I can preserve the sanity of that, I always take it. So I always try to ensure that, all right, the voice talent gets a script and has at least 24 hours to soak themselves, into it. So that's one thing that's big for me. And that 24-hour period or window will consist of me getting on a call with them and breaking it down, basically, explaining context to them. Okay, this is what they're trying to achieve. These are references that help bring to life what they are looking for. So usually, and I was saying this before we got cut off, earlier in the earlier session, Riverside. Usually, what I do when I get a brief or a script from a client is I took my side, being on the writing side and having the background of written many scripts and seeing some scripts come to life beautifully and some just turn into something chaotic. I know the pain that goes into writing a script and seeing it not turn out well. So my number one job is to avoid that and make sure that never happens on my productions. So first and foremost, what I do is to align with the client, have an understanding of the brief and play that back to them. Oh, this is what your brief says, this is what the script says. What are you thinking per se? Here's how I see it, and I usually try to have a bigger picture, of what, the commercial could go like. So when we do a line, oh, okay, that's not bad. We lock it down there. Now, part of what I also use to align and get their buying references, and there are many of them online, YouTube, Instagram, a movie reference or whatnot. So if I get a script and in my head it's sounding like or it sounded like something that Morgan Freeman did, I just look for that clip, send to them. I like the pacing of this. This is how I'm thinking of doing the production. This is how I think it can work. What do you think? I mean, once I get their buy-in, we roll with that. Because in fairness to them, most clients don't necessarily see the output, and that's in fairness to them. Not many people see it, but being in this side of the industry, it's my task or my job to see the big picture, basically. So with that in mind, I share that with the voice talent. So it's not just a script I'm giving them. I'm giving them the script and I'm giving them references. So the references serve as context, and with that, we can now begin to, get them into their zone and get them to bring in their own creative juices and flair into the production, basically. So that's sort of like what I try to do when I get like production briefs from clients, basically. I don't know if that answers some parts of your question. I know your question was kind of like two-pronged. So I think probably that, I don't know if that answers like the first half. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Because from what you've said, you play the role of ensuring that as much as possible you can communicate the mind of the client and even your team to the voice talent, and you also give the talent like time to process what it's all about. But the parts of this entire thing where I want to understand is what, again, I would like to know what inspires the selection of certain talents. Now, as a voiceover artist, I can feel a lot of sympathy for fellow voice actors because we audition most of the times and we don't get gigs. Oftentimes, we don't also know the reason why we ain't getting the gigs because they decline. The agencies, they don't reach back to us and explain why. So people just are like, they're blind trying to figure it out, and something just works.
To be honest, they can be I mean, there's many, I can't quite speak specifically to why, I mean, in that context, why voice actors wouldn't get certain jobs. But I think it's just in fairness, really, or unfortunately rather, it's a game of numbers and it's also a game of choice. Someone's going to have to get the job and someone may not. A lot of people won't get the job. That's a fact. Now, there are cases where and I'm just kind of like moving forward, but I'm going to track back a bit. There are cases where I get briefs from clients and they tell me that, oh, I want somebody with a baritone voice, full stop, and I want it to be male baritone voice, full stop. That already eliminates everybody else that doesn't have a baritone voice. There's nothing we can do about that. It's what the client wants. Right? Now, if they say they want a soft-spoken casual voice, that also sort of like eliminates people with baritone voices and whatnot. So there's that already, you know, that happens. Then there's also an equation where, or scenarios where the client tells you specifically, I want this voice talent. Say, for instance, non-negotiable, right? And there are cases where I've seen clients specifically request for talent that, oh, I want that guy that voiced that last commercial. I want him to do it. Like, don't even bother casting. I want her to do it. So that already, there's no negotiation. it's unfortunate, but it's what it is. So those cases we can't really we can't control those scenarios. Basically, we just have to roll with it. The cases where we can control is what I try to, you know, make very fair for every voice talent, and I try to give every one of them like a fighting chance to audition and to hopefully, like, you know, get the job.
Wow, what an interesting conversation. In just 10 minutes, we're able to, you know, digest some of the important factors that play a role when we talk about talents working with ad agencies. And of course, you share my sentiments, as I mentioned in that episode. The voiceover artists need to be well considered when these jobs are being, you know, put out there, because we're not essentially in the main process of conceptualizing the brief, but then we're just brought in to kind of like help fathom and express the thoughts written in the brief or expressed in the brief for the end consumer. So it was such a great conversation I had with Ayo, someone who I like to talk with over and over again, because it's not just an ad person, but also a storyteller, a producer. So he understands how these things work. He works a lot with voiceover artists. But I'm sure you want to know more about what we talked about in the full episode, which you can find in season 3, episode 14 of the Everything Voiceovers podcast. So you should go right there. I'll drop the link in the description so you can find exactly that particular episode, where we also discuss the 3 major things that casting directors look out for when selecting a voiceover artist. Well, what a great episode. Thank you so much for listening to this, which makes it the first episode in the month of January in the year 2025. But then it's a bonus episode because we're not officially resumed for 2025. When we resume, you'll be having Serah Johnson and myself have some engaging conversation with some of the top voiceover artists in Nigeria, the OGs, you know, as you call them, and other voiceover professionals. It's been a pleasure really starting this year with you all. And I say happy 2025, and I wish you all the best in this year. I wish you the best in terms of your trajectory as a voiceover artist, more gigs coming your way, and bigger improvements in your voiceover skills. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I remain Tcode, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.